Hey there, you wonderful listeners. I have a question for you. Do you want to make a podcast? Well, Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place and for free. How can you beat that? It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And here is how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, there are Q&A and poll options available, and those are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I've discovered Spotify for Podcasters, it has made doing my shows like the Steam Machine Podcast, Yabs Pod, and the JRPG Report much, much easier to do. Like being able to just go on there, record them, upload it, boom, it's done. I don't have to pay for a site service to host or anything like that. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend that you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Steam Machine Podcast. My name is Dalton, and joining me as always are my good buddies,
the Brothers of Destruction, Willie and Nathan.
Hello. And the crowd goes mild. Yes, gentlemen. How are you on this wonderful, wonderful week? I know Patreon already heard this, but these people don't, so we could touch on it really quickly.
I feel freaking great. I have a ton of energy. I've been sleeping really well and getting a load of exercise.
Me too.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
But that's just a goof for the Patreon people. He asked how I'm doing earlier, and I told him I was tired and wanted to go to bed.
Yeah. I'm doing all right.
So I forgot to do this at the top of the show last time, and I threw it in at the end. So I'm going to throw it in at the beginning here. Real quick, I'm going to throw our shout out to our lovely Patreons that donate $10 or more. They are the Nate Cogsworth, the 7th of Juniper, Jeff, the original expendable Jeffy Loop, Sir Adam, shout out to his podcast Revival and Extinction, and DC Smokedown. You guys rock. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Y'all the peoples.
So before we hop into the UBERMASH of UBERMOSH, right? I wanted to bring up
good episode title.
Episode title, yes sir. I wanted to bring up a few games, and we don't have to go deep in them, but like I think that it's interesting that in two separate generations, a Bethesda game overshadowed other RPGs that came out alongside of it, right? So, granted, Oblivion came out. I don't remember the exact year. I think it was maybe 2006. So, around then, also, Gothic 3 came out. And Two Worlds 1 came out. And
wow, Two Worlds is a name that completely fell off of my brain.
Right? I installed them to check them out, and they are the epitome of jank. But like, there's almost a redeeming quality to it. Like almost like love it a little because it's so janky. But it's they got completely overshadowed by Oblivion. So like, they were games that in my childhood, like when I would go to the rental stores and I would see like Oblivion on the shelf and I rented it and played it. Like I never even heard of those games, right? Well, a lot of people had the same thing happen when Skyrim came out. Two games in particular that were pretty much overshadowed by Skyrim. So like people either played them and didn't like them because they compared them to Skyrim or just overlooked them completely. And that is Kingdoms of Amalur and Dragon's Dogma. Now, Kingdoms of Amalur, I think it was the art was done by Todd McFarlane. Hold on, let me look it up real quick. I know that the writing was actually written by like a famous.
I feel like you've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I guess my brain puts it in the Skyrim box and I lose it every time because I couldn't tell you. I remember thinking the answer was cool.
Yeah,
because I know I've heard us talk about
the artist is Todd McFarlane and the writer is R.A. Salvatore.
Oh, yeah, okay. The Wheel of Time, right?
I think he was the original Wheel of Time guy, and then he died, and Brandon Sanderson
maybe I have the
took
wrong
over.
one.
Yeah, I know it's Brandon Sanderson now. It's not a series that I got into.
No, I'm idiot.
Isn't Ari Salvatore the
I'm
guy that
idiot.
wrote the D&D books? Like,
Yeah, he did all the Drizzt books. That's,
okay.
Yeah, I'm just dumb. All fantasy authors have the same name. They're named initial, whatever, and I don't care.
that's accurate.
Yeah, that's fair.
I blame J.R.R. Tolkien for that.
Right. And his father, SQQQY Tolkien, was a bastard, so they should have never started with that.
S. Bubby Tolkien.
But Dragon's Dogma is the one that interests me more, right? Because Kingdoms of Amalur, it's a really fun game, don't get me wrong, and I recommend it to everybody. But Dragon's Dogma is a fucking JRPG. Well, it's an RPG that was made in Japan that's supposed to be like Western RPGs. It's made by Capcom.
Huh.
So, Capcom made a Western RPG with JRPG elements. And it is really fun. But when I tell you that it is almost Dark Souls hard, like, it's challenging. For instance, a troll. You get into a fight with a troll. It's a big motherfucker. You either got to go up and slice at its knees until it falls, and then you can attack its head. Or, this was one of the first games. I say that Shadow of the Colossus did this too, but like you can jump up and grab onto the ogre and then climb up him till you're up by his head, and then you can start wailing on his head until he will grab you, and then you then have to wiggle your fucking thumbstick to get out. Or else he'll eat.
Okay, so different approaches.
But one of the cool things about it, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, so I'll just talk about this and we can move on. But it has a pawn system. So when you create your character, you create a pawn.
I know where I've seen this before. It's dumb. Don't.
I am sure Monster Factory has done something with this game.
Monster Factory has done an episode of Dragon's Dogma. Yeah, that's what I was. I just realized they had some really.
You can make some
pawns.
hideous fucking people in this game.
Yes.
So your pawn is like your number two. They're with you the entire game, right? Well, whenever you're not playing, your pawn can be taken by other people and used in their party and on their saves, right? So like when you get in, you have your pawn that you create, and then you can recruit two other pawns. Now, you're walking around towns, you're walking down the street, you see somebody in some really cool armor, you can talk to them, you might be able to recruit them because that's just somebody's pawn who is now an NPC in your game. Like, it's just really cool. All these cool concepts that
that's a neat system.
So the whole reason I'm bringing this up is there's a new single player game by Pearl Abyss coming out. Pearl Abyss is the people that do Black Desert Online. This is a single player experience called Crimson Desert, and it's going
like the desert, huh?
Yeah, apparently so. It's going to be a lot like Black Desert Online's combat, but there's going to be a lot of like Dragon's Dogma type elements where I think you can climb on your enemies and attack them and things like that. So that's still in development, but it just jumped out to me as something cool to maybe look forward to. Crimson Desert. I think there's some videos on YouTube of it and stuff if anybody wants to go check it out. But again, I want to say Dragon's Dogma and Kingdoms of Amalur, specifically Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. That's like the expanded fixed version from the original. And I think it's the only one you can get on Steam now. But yeah, that and then Kingdoms of Amalur. Kingdoms of Amalur had a remake that just came out recently called Re-Reckoning. And they like made it look a slight bit prettier and gave you an FOV slider. And I think like that's basically all they changed. I would recommend getting the original game and just getting a mod that allows you to do the FOV. That's just me personally, though.
Was it one of those where like all the mods are incompatible if you use the new version and people had been modding the game for like 10 years?
Not really. There's not a ton of mods for it other than like I think there's some that make it prettier. And then there's just one that adds a field of view slider because the game didn't have one, and you're pretty close to your character. And like I know me personally, I like to have a little distance between me and my character so I can kind of see around me.
6 feet bubble, please.
Yes, stay 6 feet away from me. I like Jim Cornette has a face mask that he was selling that says "Thank you, fuck you, bye," and he goes, "If people are close enough to read it and get offended, they're too close to you. Tell them to back the fuck up."
That's a good point.
It's not bad.
But yeah. Anyways, UBERMOSH, gentlemen.
Well, actually, I wanted to mention something before
please.
we rolled in. It's like I finally finished Metroid Dread last night.
Ooh, how was
Yeah.
that?
And it's a fantastic game. I do have a couple qualms with it. One being, I think there's times where the controls get a little convoluted because you got to hold 2 triggers at once and press buttons, and it gets kind of difficult to parse everything you're supposed to be holding at once. But I felt like the game was really well paced. The boss fights were engaging and fun, and the platforming was pretty decent. Overall, I think this is a really good entry into 2D Metroid, and I really hope that they see how well this is doing for them and that they continue to make them, because this game was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I want to point.
I'm glad you like it. I know I haven't finished. We didn't really talk after you were finished with the game, but I know you were struggling with some late game bosses there. Did you find that those, when you finished those fights, did you find it was still engaging? Like you felt like it was a fair challenge that you just hadn't quite worked out?
Yeah,
yet?
I mean, that was definitely it. I feel like one of them, for some reason, just wouldn't die no matter what I did for the longest time. And then one time it just kind of died when I didn't expect it to during one of the fights. The final boss of that game is very challenging, but once you understand its patterns, you can really get into it. Like, I remember it took me several attempts, but after the first few, I wasn't getting damaged in the first phase of the final boss at all. It's just one of those things where you feel yourself getting better at fighting it, learning the patterns, and seeing those types of movements. I think they did a really good job in this game of making the boss fights especially interesting. And it's not to the level like where you get it memorized like it's Punch Out and you're waiting for the cues, but it's kind of like Punch Out, you know what I mean? And my favorite addition in Metroid Dread, and I don't think they've done this in any other Metroid game, was where you have like a parry maneuver where you can parry an opponent's attack and then fire back at them with an attack that does extra damage. It reminded me of glory kills in Doom.
Nice.
I think that became a mechanic in one of the 3DS Metroid games, because I remember Metal Jesus talking about a Metroid game for the 3DS, and it took him a long time to get used to that mechanic.
I like it a lot in this game. I didn't play any of the 3DS ones, so that might be something I have to do. Look into the Metroids before, because I played Super Metroid, then I played the GBA Metroids, Fusion and Zero Mission, and I obviously beat the NES Metroid on stream. And then the only other Metroid I've played is Dread. I didn't play any of the Prime ones or anything.
You played the main line except for 2,
Okay.
but there was a remake of 2 for the 3DS, and then I think the Prime ones originally came out in GameCube, but there was a Wii remake that added like motion controls to it or something like that.
Whenever you decide to dive back into Dread, if you ever want to play it again, because you own it and it would be completely legal for you, there is a way to play it on your computer at like really high resolution and stuff. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, it's legal because you own the game, so there's nothing shady about it, technically.
Technically.
Oh man. Other than that, dude, I started playing some Pathfinder again here and there. I was like, now that I have it again, and we got past that fucking debacle, fuck you, G2A.
Yeah, G2A is definitely a problem.
No. And
Did you get your refund, or did you just end up buying a new game?
no, I ended
or
up, it was on sale for like $8, so I just went ahead and got it again. And it was actually the better version than the version I had, so I got like more DLC and shit now.
That's awesome.
Though, so I think on G2A, I think I just got that game from somebody who wasn't with the circle with the star, where they're like a not a premium, but like they're proven to not be shitty. So that might have been on me, but even still, I've just been avoiding that.
Yeah, I don't have time for a service like that where you're going to kind of get screwed over and over. Like, I just bought 2 games from Fanatical because, you know, they're trustworthy and you're buying from a source.
Yeah, never had an issue with Fanatical or Humble Bundle. Love them both. Yeah, actually, I got Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 from Fanatical, so that'll prep me for the next long game, being Baldur's Gate, which I look forward to because that's like one of the classic staple CRPGs. You know what I mean? That people like generally love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, man, fucking NGU idle, which I can now not see the word in. I can't not see the word indulge because of Dave pointing out that those letters, if you switch them around, make the word indulge. But NGU idle's fun. It's dumb, but it's fun. What did you say it stands for, Willie? Numbers go up?
Numbers go up.
Numbers go up. That's good.
That's hilarious. It's just a dumb little idle game, but I check it every few hours, and I don't spend a ton of time on it, but it's slowly, because I will like leave it running at night, it's slowly climbing up my most played games hours on Steam.
I like how it kind of trickles out new mechanics and new numbers to go up. Like at first, it's just your main stats, your like how long it takes, how much juice you need to use each move or whatever, and then like later on, you're getting like adventure stats and equipment and adventure mode, and then the idle pod or whatever.
So I beat the first Titan, which was like Titan Gordon Ramsay or something like that, right? It was just this big Gordon Ramsay, but like so all the other things that I have unlocked or I haven't that are
Gordon Ramsay
that are locked. I mean, is each one's like the first one that's locked says you have to beat the next Titan to unlock this, and the next one's like you have to such and such. I mean, just kidding, you have to beat a Titan, and the next one's like, guess what, you have to beat another Titan, and it's just like they just keep going and making jokes about like nope, actually you have to beat a Titan. It's like okay.
I need them Teen Titans.
So the UBERMOSH, gentlemen, is what I'm going to call this, because like we pulled UBERMOSH 5, but after playing it, I was like, I'm going to check some of these other ones out, and I realized that all these games are super similar, so why not just cover them all?
Plus, they were on sale in a huge bundle for like, I think it was $2 or $3 for the entire 8-game series.
Yeah, it was something definitely that cheap and ridiculous. And it was kind of interesting, like you said, because we did go ahead and start playing multiple ones of them, and you could just kind of see how each of them built upon each other to the point of madness in the end.
Yeah, like the last game was released in 2019, and I almost just wonder if he was just like, I can't add any more to this.
I mean, the games start off intense, and I don't know, how do we even begin like answering what this game is?
Well, first, we should probably go ahead and say that this were all developed by one person, Walter Machado, which I think is an impressive feat that he was able to put together all these games in.
Yeah. I do want to throw out that there will be no O-dubs this week because there is no Wikipedia page for this game or series. There's like a PC gaming wiki, but that literally just gives you like, yes, it has controller support and things like that.
Yeah, I searched all of Wikipedia for any mention of the word UBERMOSH, and I found 2 articles that were just lists of every Switch game, which isn't even the system we played this on.
Are these available on Switch?
I mean, Wikipedia seemed to think so, which it does seem weird because this does seem little into. I mean, Nintendo lets emulated games on their consoles now, I guess.
Yeah, do they? I don't know if
it
was funny because I logged into my Switch the other day and saw that they were releasing Grand Theft Auto for Switch. Like Vice City.
Okay.
UBERMOSH is on Switch. Yeah, you can get Sancticide and Omega from what I see, and Black. So I wonder if the volume games aren't on there, just the named games.
Yeah, they did an interesting
these
thing
games
with the series where they had, like, the odd numbered ones were numbered and the even numbered ones were named.
Yeah. And I'll go through that in just a second because I do have a list of them. Steam's description of the first UBERMOSH game, which pretty much covers them all, is UBERMOSH is an arcade game about cutting bullets with a sword in a gun-filled cyberpunk mosh pit. Like a pinball table or a coin-op arcade machine, UBERMOSH was made to give you a shot of adrenaline in a couple minutes. Each time you play, a new level is generated for you to beat your score in 90 seconds. That's basically it. That's what the game is.
Yeah. It's basically a survival game where you're trying to survive a wave of enemies for 90 seconds and trying to get your kill count as high as possible during those 90 seconds. So it's a balance of staying safe and blasting people to death.
And it almost reminds me of like a twin stick bullet hell.
Yeah, it has elements of both. It's very literally a twin stick shooter where, like, your only controls really, if you're playing on joystick, you have a movement stick, an aim stick, melee attacks, and gun attacks, and that is it. 4 controls total to play the game with. It makes it sound like this is minimalist, but minimalism isn't really what this game does either.
No, if I had to pick a game or a word to describe this series as a whole, it's intense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in my show notes, I think I've written the word intense like 15 different times.
But like Nate said, this was all done by one dude, Walter Machado. And like you said, shout out to him because all of these games are entertaining. Like some less than others, but they're all very entertaining. Now the first game that came out was just UBERMOSH. Like that was just the name of it, right? And then I don't know, half a year later, he released UBERMOSH Black. Now, UBERMOSH Black had the coolest intro, in my opinion, because there was like a little voiceover thing in the beginning that was basically like, the world, like we've evolved past dying. So whenever you're in here, you become this like cybernetic badass, and if you die, you just get transported out and you're completely fine. So it's like a simulation type thing for people in the future. And I find that to be very cool. Like I started piecing together this thing in my head, like, all right, so maybe we've moved on into space and like we've evolved, we live on different planets and like we've evolved past dying. We now know how to live forever. We cannot be hurt anymore. And we want to. And
yet violence is still part of the core.
Yeah, and it's like maybe there's no war, but we want that violence, so they created the UBERMOSH for people to go and compete in, right? And I think that would be really a cool show. Like each episode being about somebody going into the UBERMOSH, and maybe they live, maybe they don't. It would be intense. I guess you could do different rounds with people because they're only 90-second rounds, and like you can't really stretch out 90 seconds for a whole hour worth of a TV show or whatever, but
it feels like it'd be the Running Man for volunteers.
Yeah, like
the run and gunning.
Heyo.
Yeah. So after Black was Volume 3, and then Wraith, and then Volume 5, then Sancticide, which I think Sancticide was my favorite personally. Then Volume 7 and Omega. Which one stood out to you guys?
So for me, looking at it, I think that there was a good era of games, and then the sandwich. It's kind of like a sandwich to me because I thought 3 through Sancticide were really good, but I thought 1, 2, 7, and Omega had more flaws than those ones in the middle. So 1 was a really basic game compared to the other ones, where you're just basically have your basic melee, you have your shooting weapon, and then enemies come at you, and there's walls that you can kind of aim around and try to like avoid getting hung up on them and stuff. But then there was like not a lot of special abilities. Then like UBERMOSH Black was the second game, and it added this ability called Mind Blast, where ever so many kills you got, it would just like send a big wave out from you, which was basically like a screen clear. So like every time you kill like 50 enemies, you get a screen clear and basically have a chance to breathe for a second. And then they basically kept like adding small little things like that stopped making a lot of sense after Mind Blast.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure what triggers some of these events, but like you start getting these lightning bolts in a later game that come out of you. You start getting this giant plasma beam that comes out of you in one game.
Yeah, and it never explains any of it.
No, you get no explanation. Just like click the button, you're in the game, go. Good luck.
Yeah.
Like this game will just give you a menu screen with a bunch of words on it and expect you to kind of figure out what it is. There's no documentation as far as I could tell. I didn't really find that a problem because, again, the game, I don't know if we've said this yet, but because it's 90 seconds, it's so bite-sized, it doesn't really feel like trial and error. It doesn't feel like it's asking much of you, you know? Like, it feels like it's fine to go, okay, I'll just die trying to figure out what that means.
Yeah, and then you die, you just click a button, you're right back into the next game. So it's just like, it's not like you have this big, long intro sequence or cutscene or anything. It's like, here you go, you're in.
Yeah. It's literally like the only thing you have to wait for is the game to actually load and open. And then like once the game's loaded, you press play and it's like snap, you're in, ready to go. you die, boom, you're back to the main menu, boom, you're back in. Unless you want to change like your class mods and stuff, which I think were added later. I don't believe that they were in 1.
Yeah. So looking at the game list for me, I think Black was my least favorite of the games because I feel like it didn't add enough to make it different from 1 enough, just that Mind Blast. But then 3, it took away all of the like cover, like the walls in the game, so it was just like an open plane from there on out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how the rest of the games went. There were no walls you could run into or hide behind. It was just open planes from there on out. And I felt like that worked better for this style of game.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It adds to the intensity. I felt like I spent a lot of the first game comparatively, like with my back to a wall, so I would only have to defend 3 angles.
I liked that there was no barrier in those either. So it's like if you wanted to continuously run in one direction for a while and then switch direction, it was okay. Like you didn't have that like export zone where if you run out there, you leave, like the first games and the later games had.
And I think that was the mistake that 7 and Omega made, was they added those back in, and they gave you such a small space, because like the other games are so hugely open, but then in 7 and Omega, they restrict you to a small triangle space that you can see basically the entirety of the space on one screen that you have to play in, and that took away a lot of the experience for me too.
Yeah.
I think I liked the infinite space that 5 and the middle games had the most. Like I did feel like the first game it drew back a little bit that it didn't have the infinite area. It had the extraction zone. There was only like I felt like it was about 3 screen widths in each direction, and I felt like the camera felt really close in that game, so I didn't really like moving vertically at all. So like I basically kind of tried to stay towards the middle because I didn't want to run too close to the extraction zone. I didn't want to run into an offstage bullet that I didn't see, and also they didn't mention this, but the kill counts rapidly go up in each game based on like because you get so much new stuff. Like in the first game, in UBERMOSH 1, 150 kills. Which in 90 seconds, that sounds like a lot, and it is for a video game, but not for an UBERMOSH game. 150 kills in the first game is an S class, or an SSS class, I think. Then in Volume 5, to get an S class, to get any of the achievements past beat the game, you need to get at least 1,000 kills, because now you've got the brain claps, and now you've got the... I can't remember what the other things were called. The mana strike? Mana strike was like...
the barrier thing, too, that you could set to go in a circle, or that might have been the lightning, actually.
That was the mana strike, yeah. It just... I tend to think of it as a strike because I used the forward one. But you use the circle one. There's a lot of options in these games, especially in the later ones, and I like that. And then, like, by Omega, like, to get the max rating, you need to have at least 5,200 kills.
Yeah.
So it's like over 40 times as much violence in the course of one game. And I don't know about you guys, but I felt Omega, by the time you got a little way into the run, there were so many bodies on the ground, it was sometimes hard to tell what was going on.
Yeah, and let's point out a little bit about visual aesthetic for this game, too, because like we're talking about all of it, but it's kind of hard to visualize. So, you're basically playing this character, and you basically have this neon sword, and then whatever gun you pick up. And so this neon sword's really cool because you can slice the bullets back at the opponent, and then those bullets will fly back. And when we're talking about bullets, it's more like laser beams than bullets. Yeah. It's not like you're trying to hit a 9mm shot back at somebody.
For Star Wars nerds, think about when they shoot the blasters at a Jedi, and the Jedi reflects them with their lightsaber. Kind of the same concept.
Yeah, but the cool thing about it is you'll split that bullet into multiple segments, so you'll basically be shooting back 2 from when they were trying to shoot 1 at you.
Yeah, and the graphical style for this game, I would like say almost like early computer graphics in a way, like not quite 16-bit, but
not quite 32-bit either.
Yeah, but
it really reminded me of like what would it be like if you had like a Sega Genesis that had no limits except stuff still kind of had to look like a Sega Genesis in some way. Like enormous resolution, but a lot of the art feeling like wouldn't have been too out of place in like Shadowrun for the Genesis.
I agree with that. I think Genesis is probably
very
the closest to the visual style that you would see here.
Because it's got that glitchy, grungy, neon cyberpunk vibe to it.
And like whenever you destroyed an enemy, like they would leave a pile of blood on the ground, but it was a different color for each type of enemy. So like there would be blue, yellow, red. It almost looked like you were on a paintball field instead of like
one thing, I didn't check the older games, but I did notice that in 7, there was a settings menu, and one of the settings was reduce screen shake. And that was nice for my eyes.
I bet, because the game moves a lot. Like, the screen shakes when you're shooting, because, like, it's trying to emphasize the power of these guns that you're using. Because, like, when you get to, like, the max level gun in these games, it's pretty insane. And I know you play keyboard and mouse, Dalton, and I think that was a mistake. But can we talk about the rumble on the controller in this game, Willie?
Knew that's where you were going. Yes, I want to talk about the rumble. This game is loud. This game is loud in 3 senses. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I started on controller, but for reasons I'll get into after you guys talk about what you're going to talk about, I switched to mouse and keyboard, but continue.
Like, so the game, okay, even if you don't play with a controller, the audio is very loud, the visuals are very loud, they sync up a lot, they rumble on the beat, they screen shake all over the place. Like, I wouldn't recommend this game to a photosensitive person, because I don't know if it would actually cause some damage. But, oh boy, when you add that rumble in...
Like, I would play this game for like 30-minute segments at a time. I would finish, and my hands would still feel it for like an hour after I was done. They set rumble to the max on these things. I didn't even know this controllers could rumble that hard for that long.
Yeah.
I actually wrote a note because I feel like getting halfway poetic about it. What did I write here? All right. So, once you start... The vibrations are powerful, and they happen when you do damn near anything. If you cut a bullet, it rumbles. If you shoot your gun, which is mostly what you're going to be doing, it rumbles. You get hit, it really rumbles. You die, it rumbles for like 5 maximum seconds straight. And like, when it feels like you're in a rattling old truck with a jacked up subwoofer, and the upholstery is about to come off. Like, it's rhythmic, and it's synesthetic, and it is intense.
Yeah.
I don't think this game's going to be for everyone, but man, if you can put up with it, I think a lot of people are going to love this.
So this game made me realize that like my trigger fingers aren't as quick as they used to be, because I was having a really hard time moving around, aiming and hitting the triggers at the same time. And I don't know if the rumble had anything to do with that, because there were times that when I like the first couple times I played this, even like way before the show, my hands would feel like I just used a fucking weed eater when I was done.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. You got that numbness in there.
And so this time I was playing and I kept dying over and over and over and over, because personally, I liked the class mod, which I'm sure we'll get into, but the Kensai, which was just swords.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the guns personally. I'm more of like, I liked more of the Enter the Gungeon style for that. I think this game was too sporadic for me to try to aim around and shoot. But with the swords, I could literally just run around and click my mouse button. And I play MMOs. I'm really good at clicking mouse buttons, right? So, and like, I love Diablo. So like, I've done lots and lots of clicking in my time.
Just gonna make a Diablo
joke. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Go ahead, make the Diablo joke.
I bet it felt like playing Diablo. There's not much joke left once you strip the meat off the bone.
Sorry, yeah. Well, it's just a lot of clicking. So it was like more second nature to me. Now, it did take me a while to get used to when I moved my mouse, my character's direction didn't move like it would if you were playing, like a shooter per se. Once I got used to the WASD, it just made sword playing a lot easier for me. I can't really comment on guns. I didn't use them all that much, but other than in Omega, I did pick one of the characters that I thought looked really cool, and when I went into the game, he just had automatic guns shooting in every direction. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
One of them has like 4 built-in auto guns, or it ends up being 4 by the end of the run, and it's crazy.
And that's, I also want to kind of say, that's kind of one of the reasons I didn't like 7 or Omega that much too, is because like, in the other games you had character classes. In 7 and Omega, they started naming characters, and I'll give you these characters' names and pictures, and I'm like, what are
different
you
character
doing?
designs, yeah. I feel like they basically stuck to pretty much to the 6 character classes that you had about a few games in. But like, now they have their own names and identities and like looks and all that. And I think some of them worked out really well. Like, I really liked Q's sword, like, because it was like,
I really liked the
Q was kind of the Kensai.
Yeah. I was just about to say their swords in Omega and 7 looked fucking sweet because they were like blue and red. Yeah, and it was really fucking cool.
But let's go into the character class mods, because I felt like that was a cool feature. And I agree with Nate that I think it was a little too much in the later games when they were separate characters. Because picking a mod from the list felt like you were just giving yourself a small difference in challenge. Like you're just recalibrating something and you're jumping right back in. And I kind of felt like I had to sit and think at the menu for a little bit longer in Omega.
So a lot of times the class mod, it was like, okay, it's going to give you this, but you only have three respawns instead of 4. Or 2, or maybe like they'll give you more respawns if you use this class, but you can't use guns, which was my go-to. But you know, there's I don't particularly remember the names though. I remember Kensai, I remember Warlock, and my minds are blanking out though.
Nomad was your basic class. That was like whatever you started off with. Then there was a Gunner, which was
no sword, only gun.
Like, right, you cannot use the sword to repel enemies. I don't remember. Is that the one where you started off with a strong gun, or was that a?
I think you started off with the level 2 gun on that one, but you also had automatic, so you could just hold down the trigger instead of.
That's what.
Oh my god, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, that was the main difference. Is you had like not literally auto fire, but you could hold automatic fire. If you hold the button down, it was just, which was kind of nice. It was a good change up. Then Kensai was, I think, probably going to be all of our favorites because that's the sword fighting one. You didn't like Kensai, Nate?
No, Kensai wasn't my favorite. I liked it, but at the same time, I liked having the gun. Like, I thought the shooting was one of the essential aspects of the funness for the game for me, so I didn't really like Kensai or Gunner all that much because they took away part of the game from you.
That's fair.
I felt that a lot with Gunner, especially because like, once I'd been playing for a little bit, I got really used to using the melee button to try to cut down what I thought would be a threatening enemy's attack. Because, like, the game moves fast enough, and if you're walking towards something, you might need to predict if something's going to shoot at you and try to cut the bullet then. And so I'd, like, walk in the direction of, and then walk back where I was going. And with Gunner, you try that, you just,
You're
shot. You're not getting nothing. And at least in the early games, Gunner didn't have any way of deleting enemy bullets, so the screen could get really busy. Like, that was probably the bullet helliest mode.
So, go ahead.
The number of other classes. The other ones were called Psyker, Warlock, and...
Wraith?
Was there Psionic? Wraith. Wraith was the other one. Thank you. I think, was Wraith the one that started off with the red gun, or was that Warlock?
Or was it Psyker? I can't remember all the
differences.
differences. Like, I'd have to see, like, the menu in front of me. But I did like the one that started with the red gun, had, like, 2 respawns and their melee weapon. I thought that one was so much fun to try to win a game with.
I think that was Warlock, because that was the one I did last on my stream.
The first time I even played this game, I didn't realize there were respawns. Like, I didn't realize I was getting hit until I died. I thought you had 1 hit, 1 life. So, like, I was going through respawns without even realizing it.
Yeah, that is a problem, I think. It doesn't really give you a good indication that you've been hit. Like, you kind of have to know what to be looking for. It takes a few games to even be able to see when you did get hit. And most of the time, that was for a conjunction of knowing what that particular rumble felt like on the controller for me.
I feel like, too, and especially in the earlier games, like, there's not a lot of feedback when you get hit, and there are certain monsters, like the big cloud of, like, little robot dots or whatever that surrounds you. Like, if you get caught in that, you're not just losing 1 life. You have, like, no iframes in the early games, so it's just going pop, 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 pop.
As soon as I see those things, I start swiping that sword like a motherfucker.
Same.
Yeah, but in the later games, if you get lucky and get that screen wipe, the Mind Blast, it just takes care of it for you. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite strats in Omega was I was going with Q, who was the sword character, the Kensai, and using the what was it called? What's the name for a little shield you have on your arm?
Buckler? Bracer?
Buckler, thank you. There's a ability called Buckler that's like a constant forward-facing shield, and she can use the sword so fast and has such range that if you're kind of always twirling and cutting at the same time, the only things that could hit you were the blue shield guys. Because those are the only ones that could cut through shields, basically. So the barrier would take care of it if you were twirling enough. So it was kind of a game of speeding up, twirling, destroying everything when you get enough kills in a row to get one of your special moves, and then, like, avoiding the blue shield guys until their shields run out, and then going up and, prioritizing them.
Now, did you see any gold shield people? Because I swear I saw some that had looked like a golden aura to them that I would just run away from.
Yeah, those existed.
I think the
gold aura guys, yeah, for sure. And I don't know what exactly caused that gold to wear off, but if you stood your ground with them long enough, that gold would wear off and you could shoot them and destroy them. But I don't know if it was me hitting them enough times beforehand that made the shield go away, or if it just went away on the time base.
Yeah, I figured that out from playing Omega, because Omega has so much stuff going on that I had to just focus on individual things to like feed in on. And I found out pretty quick that the shielded enemies, that's just time based. Like you can shoot them a million times, it won't count until the shield drops. Except in the later ones, there's a move called Shredder, which shoots that. You remember that, like the three.
Yeah, like the orbs,
like hollow circles. Yeah, like that move cuts your shields. That move hurts shields.
There's so much going on. I had no idea what anything did ever.
Yeah, I spent a while in that game just trying to parse what was happening. I think that was the most interesting mechanic to me, because finally you have a way to fight back against shielded enemies, but one of the shielded enemies does that to you too. So.
I will say in Omega, the guy that's basically the gunner class in there, if you play as him, okay, because you know how there's like all the different types of gun. You have the purple gun, which is basically a one-shot, the blue gun, actually silver gun, which is a two-shot, then the gold gun, which is a three-shot. Then you get this red gun, which is basically the spread gun from Contra, which is fantastic. Then you get an upgraded version of that in the rest of the games, from 5 on, you can get that, which is just like this huge shooting weapon. There was actually a weapon above that for the gunner class in Omega.
Oh, really? What was it?
It was
like
straight out green weaponry, like in like kind of like Pac-Man ghost shapes at the enemy, and it was a huge spread.
Oh, sick. I would feel invincible if I had that. I didn't play. I only won once on Omega. I only finished one encounter on that. I finished one with the loadout I said earlier.
I finished 2, once with the Kensai type character and once with the gunner type character. And when I saw that weapon with the gunner, I was like, oh, because I got SSS with that character because of that weapon.
Nice.
I never got an SSS.
Oh, man.
I got an S. I did get the singular S, but I never got the triple S.
In UBERMOSH Volume 1, I managed to get triple S before I cleared the game. Because I was so used to the high. I played 5 first, then 1, then 8 or Omega. And I was so used to the super intensity from 5 that I was just like, I gotta get people. So I was getting like 150 kills, but dying anyway.
The funny thing about this whole experience to me, though, was we had drawn UBERMOSH 5 to play, but it's been a while since that short poll was up, so I'd kind of forgotten which one it was, and I had convinced my brain that it was UBERMOSH 3. So I'd spent an hour playing UBERMOSH 3, and I was like bragging in our group chat, like, haha, guys, I'm kicking this game's ass. Check this out, all my achievements. You're like, and then Will's like, aren't we supposed to be playing UBERMOSH 5? And I think that's part of the reason we ended up doing the UBERMASH, because we realized how easy it was to go between all these games.
Yeah. That was you too. You were the forward scout on that, because I'd ask like, how much do you think carries over between 3 and 5? And you're like, this is kind of like, a revision of the same game more than a different game.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of like it just kind of evolves with itself.
I'll say this: I think there are 3 different games with revisions. Yeah. Black is a revision of 1. 3 through Sancticide, which is 6, are 1 game, and then 7 and Omega are 1 game.
That seems really fair, because 7 just looked. I didn't play it, but it seemed like a little less than Omega.
I had a problem with 7 on my computer. For some reason, whenever I was playing 7, my controller would decide, and it doesn't do this for any other game, it didn't do this for any of the other UBERMOSH games, it would decide to click out of my game window onto my other whatever window I had open and start going back and forward on my web browser. I was like, I can't play it. And I couldn't get it to stop. I tried like 5 times. I was like, I get it. This is like weird. Omega, but less.
Yeah, that's odd.
I have no idea why that game did that. No other game has done that on my PC.
Yeah, that's weird. I know it's because it doesn't have dedicated full screen, but even still, if none of the other ones did it, that's odd that one would do it.
Yeah. I don't feel like I missed too much, because I feel like I got basically the version 2 of that game by playing Omega.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like if you don't have $2 to get the entire series and you just want to go drop 49 cents, I would say either get 5 or Sancticide. And I'd probably lean towards Sancticide personally. Like, that's probably like the definitive UBERMOSH game. Of the ones that I played, I enjoyed that one the most. You had the big wide open square, but you had different class mods and different adjustments and you also had the regular mode, hard-boiled mode, and then Sancticide mode, which I played on Sancticide mode, and it was really fun. I have not tried hard-boiled, though.
I'll be honest, I saw it. I never thought to try hard-boiled.
I'll be honest, I actually didn't either. I just assumed it was more enemy spam on the screen, so I was just like, I'd rather spend my time playing more of the UBERMOSH games than messing with hard-boiled.
Yeah, I figured it was probably just hard mode type thing, and that's not my bag, baby.
Like, one thing I really liked too, I mean, we describe these as iterative a little bit, but like the amount of additional polish I feel like they got in terms of actual gameplay, and then just like juicy features that make you feel like you're more in control and the world jumps out to you. Like, you see it jump up so much, especially because I only played 3 editions. I played 1, 5, and 8. So like when I went back from 5 to 1, I'm like, I missed the little neat touches, like the sword slashes alternating between red and green, little things like that, And it's like, it was so cool how much quietly had been added, but you would probably only notice if you were missing them from later games, whereas if you played them going forward, you might have never even like realized, okay, they added this neat little additional feature.
Yeah, and I also thought it was kind of cool to watch the graphics kind of evolve from like 1 where everything was very not matte and not muddy, but just wasn't vibrant, whereas you load up like Omega and the colors fucking pop while you're on, especially blood. that red really pops with that like purplish background thing that they got going on. It looks crisp.
Yeah, I'd say the first game felt more kind of grungy, and by 5 it was way heavier on the cyberpunk elements.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it started in the grunge and then moved to the cyberpunk era.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it, and I kind of look forward to some of the other games that we have on the list by this dude. I know I think it's called Trip to Vinelands. It's TTV, but I think it's called the Trip to Vinelands or something like that. I have 2 of those, and I believe I have Swarm Riders, which is another thing by him, but I think that's like a shooter, but not quite like UBERMOSH. I think it's more like a on rails type. What's the word? Shoot 'em up, like a shmup type game. I could be wrong though. It's been a while.
Yeah, because I was looking at some of those games too, and like that Trip to Vinelands game, Vinelands, like that looks like my bag, baby. Like, I would look like something I would really enjoy playing.
Very aggressive like environments in a platforming game, which I know that you've done the Path of Pain and things like that, so I'm sure a few buzzsaws don't scare you. We need to get you playing Super Meat Boy one day, I swear.
That would be a good one for me. I think I'd enjoy that game a lot too. I'm like the one person who loves platforming games who's never played Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
So Swarm Rider Omega is an endless runner plus twin stick shooter arcade mashup. Based on Swarm Riders, which, if I remember correctly,
I'm just delighted by the idea of a twin stick endless runner. That's really good.
So, if you would like to check it out, the original Swarm Riders by Walter Machado is free on Steam.
Nice.
Yes. It looks as intense as UBERMOSH, but you're just going in one direction and shooting behind you, and it looks ridiculous. So yeah, if any of these sound interesting to you, feel free to come check out Swarm Riders because it's free. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the rest of this stuff is like I hate to say it like this, but it's dirt cheap. Like, you can get in and get it for really easily. And if you just want to pick up one, I think my recommendation is going to be different. I kind of liked Wraith the best because it kind of felt like that beautiful in-between before it started getting too deep into it for me, but it also wasn't too much like the older ones. Like, I just felt like that was like a really good in-between was Wraith for me, which was the 4th edition.
That's fair. What about you, Willie? Did you have a favorite?
I didn't.
Other ones you played?
I won't be honest. I think I ended up liking Omega more than you guys did. Like, I actually feel like it is very intense and very unapologetic about that, even for an UBERMOSH game. But like it really throws you into the deep end way harder than any others. And I know that at the very beginning of the game, I'm like, Part 5, when I was streaming that, I was like dying in 3 seconds every time because I hadn't got my bearings. And this one's way, even if you've played the other games, it's still going to be way more than that. But it seems like it's the one that's most built for long-lasting gameplay. Like, I feel like there's a lot of challenges that you'll end up doing. Just the customization is really cool. Finding new ways to strategize how to deal with certain enemy types is cool. I really want to see that big green like Pac-Man ghost gun now. That sounds really awesome. So I'm probably going to end up playing it again sometime very soon. And trying to finish it with all the characters and maybe see about getting to the higher ranks.
And like we said, if you want to pick up the 3 recommendations that we've given, they're 49 cents a piece, or you can spend $2.99 and get all of them.
I believe this is a sale, but this is the second time we've seen this sale in the last
Yeah,
few
because I
months.
bought it, but like when this won the poll, the short game poll, I bought it on sale, and now it's on sale again. Like, if you need to wait for a sale, feel free, because I feel like this game goes on sale quite often.
Yeah, and if it's not on sale, it's 99 cents per game.
Yeah. I mean, they're not expensive games, and I kind of appreciate the idea of what I'm assuming is a one-man studio, since it's just the guy's name. And when I went on his YouTube page, it looked like he had like videos about how he got the tone when he was composing the music, which I'll speak up about the music too. It's this cool blend of like hard-edged electronic stuff that just really intense, really forceful, and like pumping. Like it moves you forward.
But the problem with that is he used the same track for every single game, and it only had 1 track per game. Yeah, and it was the same track in each game.
I think Omega had a lot of different tracks, because it didn't even have the same title. It didn't have the same title track as 5 and 1 did.
You're right. So maybe since I played all of them, I just got so used to hear the.
Yeah. I think he composed new music for the last.
That would make sense, because I spent less time in those.
I just installed the Swarm Rider Omega, and I'm gonna laugh if I load it up and it's got that same song, because it's just. Oh, that would be funny.
It's especially in my head because I spent a really long time trying to get the game to stream correctly, because I was having an issue with Streamlabs OBS wasn't going to let me do my game hook unless I ran it in Administrator, and it took me a really long time to figure that out. And I ended up hearing that loop, which is about 8 seconds of song for about 30 minutes.
I will say it's a good track, but it's the only track you're going to hear.
Yeah, it's a banger. I mean, there's the in-game track and there's the title track. It's the title track that I found repetitious. The in-game music I liked.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's a game on the list that I can't wait till it comes up. Geometry Wars 3.
Oh, right? Dude,
I love that game.
I want to play that.
It plays the same song every level. And it's like boom, boom, bam, 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 bam. I've heard it so many fucking times that it could just loop in my brain. It's just like this 1.5, 2 minute loop that just plays over and over, and it's catchy, but eventually you turn the music off and put on your own music instead.
I could wonder that about games that have like, I mean, how did the Mario Maker 2 professional streamers who play like 1,000 hours of Mario Maker 2 deal with the like 16 tracks that has?
They don't, because I follow a pretty prominent Mario Maker 2 streamer named Pangia Panga. Also a big ROM hack player too, but like he even talks about on stream, he's like, I can't tell when this P-switch timer or this star is going to run out because I'm not listening to in-game audio right now in my headphones. I'm listening to my music.
Oh wow, okay, that's a good answer to my question. Thank you for actually having that on file, because I definitely, that game in particular I was just thinking about recently, because like there's, at least they added a few original compositions for like levels that didn't exist in that original game, like an Ice Mario 1 music and things like that, but that's still only like 8 biomes over 5
How
games.
many times can you listen to the new Super Mario Brothers 1 ground theme?
That's why I've really grown to appreciate games that allow you to have custom radio stations, like Grand Theft Auto or Euro Truck Simulator,
Ultimate Fishing Simulator,
and Ultimate Fishing Simulator. Well, that UFS was a little different because it actually had radio stations that you could choose from.
It was a good selection.
Oh, absolutely, dude. That Underground 80 station. Like, I have Soma FM bookmarked on Chrome, so I can just pull that up and listen to it.
Nice.
But like Grand Theft Auto, there's a folder for user music on the PC, and you can like take your music that you have and put it in there. When you go into the game for the PC version, there's a new radio station called User FM,
Oh, that's sick. So, like, I could download all of the Now the
Nice.
Nightmares albums and throw it in that folder and just listen to Now the Nightmare while I play the game.
Absolutely could. You could do drive-bys while listening to Turtle Bear Man Boogie or Turtle Bear Boogie.
Da-da-da-da-da. Do-do. Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. So I've always really enjoyed that, and I know Euro Truck Simulator 2 has something similar where there's like a user FM thing that you could use. But like I love that
That's so
the Grand Theft Auto one. You know how their radio stations have commercials and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They still have those on
Yeah.
user FM, and they will be like some of the commercials are like making fun of you for listening to your own music.
That's awesome.
Here's the nerd that thinks he's too good for Duran Duran.
But yeah, it's great. But I will say that, like, in particular, Grand Theft Auto 5, like, their radio stations were pretty baller anyway. But yeah, sometimes I just wanted to hear some shit that they're not going to put in video games.
Yeah, for sure.
I said Duran Duran because I forgot we were talking about Grand Theft Auto 5 and not Vice
Dude,
City.
my City soundtrack was a bop, though.
Oh my god, I don't think there was a bad
I
station.
wonder if
in
they'll
that.
add that to the remasters because, well, I have the older versions of the Grand Theft Auto games on Steam, and I know 4 you could do the custom music. So I've never looked about Vice City though. I love Vice City. That's such a fun game.
That's the one that sticks out the most to me from
yeah.
growing up playing the GTA games. That's the one I like the best.
My
I feel like it's the one I got furthest in the story.
There was a
on.
story
Like,
in those
I
games?
really just I just sandboxed in San Andreas, whereas at least I would try to accomplish things in
my
the city.
my first Grand Theft Auto game was 3, and I remember I bought it
Yeah.
not knowing what it was or anything, and it blew my mind. There was no menu. You put the game in, it loaded, and it took you straight into the game, and my mind went boom right off the side of my head. I was like, holy shit. And then I was driving around and I ran somebody over and was like, holy shit.
I'm there.
And then now, Will, you have access to my Steam library. I go install Grand Theft Auto 3 and just drive around. And dude, there's like maybe 10 people on the map total. Like there's so like the crowding is so little compared to the newer games.
I believe that. A lot of it is just, it was so much bigger than what we were used to. Like, it was PlayStation 2 era. Like, the biggest game in terms of you can do anything up to that point had been like, oh, what's that Dreamcast game everyone loves?
Panzer Dragoon.
The Shenmue.
Oh, Shenmue.
It's like, yeah.
I have those games too.
It's like,
I mean, just like think about how like
I mean, I feel
Ocarina
like
of
that-
Time felt so big.
yeah, and then you compare it to like Breath of the Wild, it's crazy. Then you look at Breath of the Wild's actual dimensions, and I think the whole game takes place in like 4 square miles.
Really?
It's really not that objectively
crazy.
large.
I do know that the
The sharp biome.
I think it's I think it was the Breath of the Wild map was like 9 times the size of Skyrim's map or something like that.
That makes sense.
Skyrim is that
ridiculous
small?
Skyrim is actually not. I mean, it's big, but it's not super big. And like Breath of the Wild is huge.
Well, it's damn sure not the biggest Elder Scrolls map, that's for sure.
No, that goes to Daggerfall, which is the size
That goes
of
to
actual
Daggerfall.
Britain.
Yeah.
It's just
That's
fucking like
daunting.
I mean, most of it's empty or procedurally generated. I
procedurally
think,
generated
but
wilderness.
Still.
yeah, that game heavily encourages fast travel.
Yeah.
Because, but Jesus, like I've played Daggerfall Unity, so it's like the an updated version to kind of run a little better and things. But even still, dude, the amount of blips on the map for the different places you can go is wild. So many. But yeah, is there anything else about UBERMOSH that you guys would like to touch on? I think it's worth the $1.
I mean, this is going to sound really facile and goofy, but the central conceit of the game is cut bullets in half with a sword. And I got to tell you, when that's the main point of your game, you got to make it feel good. And what this game does is makes that feel as good as possible.
Yeah.
I'll agree. I think that for the most part, most of the games do what they sought out to do very well.
I think that the first game maybe a little... It didn't quite get there yet, but you could see what it was going to become. I feel like that... Yeah, I really enjoyed the rest. I understand if Omega was sensory overload and hard to parse, but like I think I ended up enjoying it once I started to understand things. It's just there's so much more going on that you have to start. I feel like you have to take a further back look at it, if you know what I mean. Like you can only be looking at certain enemies and not like the whole field.
I I kind of did an average of this in my mind for a rating, and I'm falling somewhere between a 7 and a 7.5, just as a total whole. Probably more like 7.
Okay.
Because I think that there were some games that I would rank maybe an 8 as far as fun, and then there were some that like I would put like at 4. But I don't want to give it a 6 as a whole, so I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, I think for me, they're fun games. And I think that you're right. On the low end, it's probably a 4, but I also think at the high end for me, it's at a 7. The best game is probably a 7 for me. Like, it's fun to doink around with for a little bit, but it's not one that I see myself coming back to and just playing because I don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
There's other games that have that spot for me, and I just don't really see myself achievement hunting in it or anything like that. So I actually go with a 6.5 for the series, which it's good, but it's just not something that's going to draw me and keep me.
Yeah. For the price, I think it's definitely worth it.
For the price, I could give it a 7. You're right.
I think my considerations involved it being a one-guy team and a fantastic value proposition. And, like, I was trying to figure out how far above 9 I could go without feeling weird about it.
And I had a feeling that
like,
you in particular would like this series more than me.
I mean, understandable. I have a feeling that you would like Super Meat Boy more than me. But, I don't know. I kind of... There are types of games where I can bang my head against the same level. You've seen me trying to stream Doom recently. I can't get through Barrels of Fun, but I sure did stream it for like an hour straight. I'm just gonna give it. I'm gonna give the series on the whole a flat 9, and you could just say that scores for whichever you think the best game in the series is. I didn't feel any of them were 4 level to me, but I did feel UBERMOSH 1 was really weirdly empty compared to the other ones I played.
Yeah, you could almost see where like he was developing his chops there, and he was definitely like, all right, well, I got the enemies down, so what else can I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe this was made in Game Maker or GM Studio, and like I mean I'm gonna double check that before I actually don't know if I can double check that because I don't think there's that much written about UBERMOSH. I'll write it. UBERMOSH, GM Studio. See if that confirmed. Yeah, it absolutely was made in GM Studio. And I feel like you can see that in some elements of the gameplay because even things like the screenshot remind me of other GM Studio games. Like, I got a little bit of a Nuclear Throne vibe off of some things, especially deflecting bullets with a sword reminded me of deflecting things with a wrench or with a sledgehammer in Nuclear Throne, and the screen shake was also very similar. But this game is, like, a lot less serious and more intense.
Yeah, and we've said multiple times, if there is a word to sum up this fucking series, it is intense.
I think I've actually adjusted my one word to loud.
Loud, yeah.
Like, this game would be miserable to play if you were sick or hungover or had a migraine
I
or
can't
something.
imagine playing this hungover. It's like...
Dude, what killed me is, I like to play video games with some YouTube going or something, and these games, there was no fucking volume control. And I would literally just have to play them. I'd just turn my speakers down and pause my video and play UBERMOSH because, yeah, there's no... He wants you to hear that fucking song.
I think I just respect how uncompromising it is in a lot of its ways. Like, this game is going to be a love it or hate it game for a lot of people. I completely understand that. It is not going to be for everyone, and I'm not saying you're wrong if it's not for you. Just this one ended up being my shit for sure.
And I'm weird that I don't fall into love it or hate it. I just kind of really like it.
Yeah. I'm kind of right there with you.
But I could see people picking it up once and going, "Oh, this is no."
And I think
no.
listener Kana picked up Omega, and she said she enjoyed that one.
That was the first one she did, though, because that is a really...
She jumped into the deep end.
I felt...
Yeah. She did not dip her toe in the kiddie pool at all.
Straight in with no water wings, because that one is just too... I mean, that one was too much for me the first several times I played. I actually closed it and went and did something else and then came back to it like, okay, I have to figure out what happened.
Yeah, so, Kana, I'm sure you're listening to this. If it's too much, definitely just try Wraith or Sancticide, and they're a little easier.
A little bit easier to understand, at least. I won't say that it's easier to get a win on them, but I will say it's easier to parse what's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Which game do you guys thought was the easiest one to win? I think that's a question
3.
we kind of didn't really go through. 3 for sure.
There's only one that I went around in, so hold on, I'll tell you. Let me look to the achievements. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say out of the 3 I played, it was definitely 5, because I thought 1, I felt like on 1 you died to off-screen stuff or nearly off-screen stuff a little too often, and 8, well, there's no such thing as off-screen stuff in 8,
Yeah.
but there's just so much happening that eventually you're going to back up into multiple bullets and you run out of respawn
So
cores.
3, I felt like it moved a little bit slower, and I wonder if that's true or it's just the way it felt. It moved a little bit slower than the ones that came a little bit after it, and it was just easier to react to things for me in that one. But I will say that when I went from 3 to 5, I immediately won my first game in 5, so maybe
Nice.
5 is the easiest, I'm not sure. But I did have my practice in 3 before I went to 5, so it's kind of hard to quantify.
I was hoping I'd have that experience when I jumped into 1. I was hoping like, oh, I'm a pro with the later games, but like you're kind of naked in 1 compared to like 5. Like you don't have the brain clap, you don't have the mind strike or mana strike, you don't have your sword feels like you have fewer strikes per second.
I will agree with that. Like, I feel like the sword got better as the game went on.
Yeah, I feel like by Omega, I mean, I won as the Kensai, obviously, but like, I feel like I basically wouldn't have used the gun if I had.
Yeah, in
one.
Omega, though, the cool thing about Omega, I will say, the Kensai sword is huge, and it is noticeably different. Because then if you use that, like, the clone type character, like Aya, who's basically like the no-mod character, her sword feels so puny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the default sword. Although she had a modifier, I think a couple other ones they called Bone Sword, where you could give up a modifier to have a wicked huge sword that was also kind of slow.
Yeah, the Kensai went in with like 2 fucking like berserk anime, like those just massive swords. Like just she's.
Yeah.
So the only UBERMOSH that I completed an event was 5.
Okay.
I think that's got to be it.
I have an
guess.
achievement for the first UBERMOSH called Hard Boiled.
Oh, because you switched to hard-boiled mode.
Oh,
I literally just switched to hard-boiled mode, and it gave me that achievement. I did play. I was like playing UBERMOSH 1, and I'm like, "Fuck, this is hard," and then realized that somehow I had switched to hard-boiled modes, and I'd forgotten about that until I was just looking at this. So yeah, I did play hard-boiled on 1.
I did get quite a few achievements, but just suffice to say, the achievements aren't anything like crazy. They're just like get a number of kills as a certain class, win as this class, things like that. It's nothing that's like wild and unexpected.
Did you guys feel like getting the top kill achievement in 5 would be really difficult? Because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere close to those numbers.
I think that you probably have to switch to hard-boiled mode. And I think that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. As you switch to hard-boiled mode, you'll get more enemy spam, so you'll be able to get those more kills.
And you might
get
a higher multiplier based on well, actually there's no score, it's just kill count, isn't it?
Yeah, just kill count, there's no multiplier.
Yeah, that's right.
I was wondering about that at first because UBERMOSH 5 feels like the score feels like it gets a little ahead of you at some point, but I think it's just because eventually you're cutting and throwing so much stuff in a direction that you're blasting a bunch of off-screen dudes too.
Because I've definitely killed things off-screen
I don't
and
think
went and picked up their weapon off-screen from off-screen before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which also makes it freaking crazy that in 90 seconds I ended up killing something like 5,000 guys in UBERMOSH Omega.
Buck wild.
I almost feel like it gets
so
to
nuts.
a point too where like how do I put it? Like, so I believe when you walked over the weapons, like you would just pick them up, but at a certain point there's so many weapons on the ground, I feel like you would be switching guns all the fucking time.
It does switch guns until you get the red gun, and then it won't let you downgrade from the red gun. So if you pick that one up, you will stick permanently with that unless you get the upgrade to it.
That's good to know.
Yeah, because I felt like weird about early game, but I feel like I was, after a few runs, trying to prioritize. Like, you figure out which monsters have the red gun, and that's just the one I would start going for, because, you know, you get the red gun, then you get the fire gun or whatever it is, and then you're good. I mean, I still want to see the green ghost gun. That's down my goal.
It's cool. It's really cool.
All right. I don't have anything else about the game, gentlemen, so if you guys don't have any either, then we can go ahead and get into some house cleaning.
We talked about the game for approximately the length of 40 full playthroughs of the game.
Yeah, I believe next week is going to be our Trails episode, and then the week after that will be Quake. I'm sorry, it won't be Quake. I'm sorry, it'll be Full Throttle Remastered, and then Quake will be the next short game after that, because Full Throttle won the last short poll.
UBERMOSH has been sitting in the queue for so long that I actually forgot Full Metal. Or
so did I.
One. Like, I was like wondering, like, what is Full Throttle? I like literally forgot that entirely.
Yeah. But Full Throttle is supposed to be.
Was that the one that beat Metal Gear 2?
Yeah, I think so.
So wild.
It's a well loved point and click game. I think it was LucasArts.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought I was expecting a race game.
I think.
Yeah, so was that.
Oh, no. Full Throttle is definitely a point and click adventure game.
Okay.
Originally released in 1995.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're a motorcycle guy, but this is absolutely a LucasArts
done by
adventure
Tim
game.
Schafer.
Huh.
So this should be fun.
Okay.
But
I was so imagining like a Wipeout or Twisted Metal PlayStation 1 style racer
Same. Oh, it's by Double Fine?
with like some extra
Wait,
violence.
Full Throttle Remastered? Double Fine?
yeah, I think Double Fine did the remaster of it.
Okay.
LucasArts originally released it, and then Double Fine released the updated version of it. I think they might have also done the Day of the Tentacle remaster.
I mean, that makes sense because it says Tim Schafer, the Double Fine guy, kind of wrote Full Throttle, which, okay.
Nice.
This will be
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, so we have that to look forward to.
That's a huge change of pace. I don't know if we've done
We have not done a point and click game.
You've recently, like, on either a solo episode or one of the last ones with Ryan on it. I know you did King's Quest because you both did different versions
Yeah, so
of the game.
Ryan played the old point and
that's
click
the
one.
last one.
I played the updated
Yeah.
version that I could play with the controller and stuff that was released for like PS4 and things. Yeah, that was a fun miscommunication, but it was interesting.
I thought it made an interesting show.
So, if you would like to come join our Discord, you can go to bit.ly/the TSMP Discord. It's all capital letters. And you can come join in, make your vote heard. You can vote on the games for the show. You keep hearing us talk about polls. That's where the polls are, over there on Discord. And also, we've been building a cool little community, man. I love how it's been like more chatty recently and stuff in there. So keep it coming, man. We want to see more new people pop in, and we can love to meet you.
Pictures of Dalton's ravioli and white sauce with spinach and bacon.
Yeah, I do. I post food that I make too, and that's always fun. I know that's where like also you can catch our Twitch streams when we decide to go live. Nate posts his TikToks, his little gaming TikToks that he makes in there. It's a good time. If you'd like to check out our website, you can go to bit.ly/the Steam Machine Podcast. Just capitalize each word there in that. And the website's got links to all kinds of stuff. It's got links to Nate's Twitch. It's got links to Willie's Twitch, I believe. It's got links to my Twitch. It's got links to the merch store. You want to get a cool shirt with our podcast logo on it? There's a link there for that. I think there's links for our social medias too. I do try to be active as I can on Facebook and Twitter. I'm not great at it though, but I do try. So there's that. But I feel like most of our interaction comes on Discord anyway. So, you know, I tend to be. Basically what I'm telling you guys is come join the Discord. That's where most of us are active. And then the only other thing is the Patreon, patreon.com/the Steam Machine Podcast. If you donate $1 do, as I've heard some people call it. I believe it's Dave from Tadpog. Shout out Tadpog. Tyler and Dave play old games. Had to get it in there at the end. If you give $1, you get access to our Patreon episodes, and basically it's like whenever I do music episodes, I'll put them on there, or you get each episode a day early, and you get to hear our shenanigans before we start. Be it just some random banter, or if one of us has prepared a question for the others. It's a good time. And if you would like your name read at the beginning of the episodes, which may, if it grows to be a big enough list, may shift to the end of the episodes. But yeah, that's $10 or more a month, and you'll get your name on there. And we appreciate from the $1 to the $10. Hell, if you're just listening for free, we appreciate all you guys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Even if you just stole an iPhone and you're listening to our podcast on one of... No. If you stole from our listener, you should give it back.
But go
don't
take
steal our
your
listeners'
grandma's...
phones.
Go take your grandma's iPhone and set it to auto-download our podcast. She'll never notice. She'll never even open that app. And it'll make our numbers go up.
And she might learn something about Doom, too, if she does listen.
Yeah.
So
Or
win-win.
eating ass. Either way.
That's more of a Tadpog thing.
Hey, you can set it to download them, too. Nate, go ahead and plug your stuff, my good buddy.
Yeah, if y'all want to catch me streaming old games on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/TurtleBearman. Saying stupid things on Twitter, it's twitter.com/TurtleBearman. Or just seeing me be goofy in video games, and maybe I'll start posting other stuff other than gaming. On TikTok, it's tiktok.com/TurtleBearMan. I am Turtle Bear Man.
The old TBM. And Willie, you have been streaming, so I'm going to ask you, sir, would you like to plug your stuff?
Yeah, kind of. I know that sounds like I sounded so put upon there, but it's because I did really want to stream UBERMOSH. I do really want to stream Doom 2, but only the stuff that happens after the map I'm currently on. And now that I've been streaming it, I feel like I need to beat it on stream, and it's going to suck to watch. But once I get past that map, it's going to be fun. We're going to get to the beginning of TNT soon, and I love a lot of that stuff. The beginning of TNT is really good. But no, I didn't stream any Doom this week. I just streamed UBERMOSH because, that's for the podcast, and I don't want to play Barrels of Fun.
But it's Barrels of Fun.
It's not. There's barrels.
They're not fun. They fucking lied. You fucking lied.
Barrels of pain.
All right, well, what is it, twitch.tv/IceBrandStudios?
Yeah, I should do my Twitch channel instead of just complaining. That's a much better plug. Hey, don't watch my Twitch, but if you did, here's the thing I hate about it. Man, I'm bad at marketing.
So, yeah. So do you want to say it, or is you're just good with me saying it? Oh, he went full robot. Okay, so yes, it's twitch.tv/IceBrandStudios.
It happened again.
I don't know. Is it me going robot?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
No, it was almost definitely me.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine.
No, I made a little note of when it happened the first time.
Oh, that's what you were doing.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought maybe you were just doodling. Like drawing some boobs or something.
Nice.
Just like, yeah.
No, I was just trying to be a helpful little podcast boy. I had a part where I broke up, and I thought when you hear my audio, it's going to sound like me and you are both asking Nate a question at a time, and I just wanted to say you should prioritize Nate or yours because my audio was not what you heard.
I gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, gentlemen,
Behind the
I
music.
believe that is all. So for this week, they are the Brothers of Destruction. I am Dalton, which is weird. I feel weird saying my own name like that, but I'm Dalton. They're the Brothers of Destruction, and as always, guys,
Wieners.